Line. Oh, okay. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Obviously, we're going to do something a little different today. What we've got is just a pile of junk lumber that I've had laying around, and what we're actually going to do with it is we're going to build a bed cart. Something, I know if you're like me, you've got very limited space to work in, and once you take that pickup bed off, you got to do something with it. You want to be able to move it around some, get it out of your way, bring it back to where it's better to work on, easier to work on, and then once you're moving on to another step, you want to be able to move it out of the way. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. Again, this is just some lumber that I've had laying around from different, bought too much for certain projects or tore certain things down and hey, there's some decent lumber. Let's hold on to that stuff. That's what this pile is. Some of it is very crooked, some of we got a couple of 4x4s, we got some 2x4s, we got short little pieces. But other than what we've got laying around, guys, all we're really going to use, we got a pair of straight casters that we're going to put on, and then we got a pair of swivel casters. The reason for that is the straight casters are going to give us a little more stability, where the swivel casters are going to be able to let us move it around a little easier. It's going to be set up like a toolbox. We're going to have straights on one end, swivels on the other, be able to move it around in and out of little spaces. We're actually in a 3-bay shop, but given the storage that we're using it for also, we really only got 2 bays to work in, so it's not any different than your home garage. And, or maybe you've got a 1-car garage and you can only bring the pickup in at one time and then the bed in at one time. This is going to be perfect for that. This will be able to roll around, we'll be able to put it out of the way. It's going to be more than solid enough to hold that bed. Potentially be solid enough that we can actually climb in it and prep the inside of the bed, when it's time for liner or whatever you're going to want to do in there for your own project. But I think this is something that's really useful no matter what you're working on. If you got the bed off the pickup, or just use it as a work cart, laying around, because it's not going to be anything great big. We've actually got a couple boards here that are going to be a perfect length. We're not going to cut them down. We're just going to deal with what they are. And we're going to kind of build everything else to it. But with a 6.5 foot bed, 6 to 6.5 feet is going to be plenty long. It's going to be right at 6.5 feet. One thing to think about too, guys, is on your back of your pickup bed, you're going to have that panel that hangs down. So it's not going to stick out the back. So don't worry about making it super long, because if you make it super long, in order for it to sit on there square, you're going to have it sticking way out the front, which isn't going to hurt anything, don't get me wrong. But it's one more thing to walk around. It's that much more space. I'm hoping that the footprint that we leave with the cart is no bigger than the bed is going to be the biggest part of the whole thing. We're not going to be a lot longer. We can't be any wider. We have to keep it narrow enough to fit inside on the floor runners. So we're going to be at about 3.5. If you stretch it out too close to 4 feet, you can run into interference sometimes with some of the lower strut rods that support the lower bed sides, things like that. We want to make sure that when we sit this on there, that it's sitting nice and flat, everything's laying flush, we're sitting right on the floor beams, and we're in good shape. That's going to be what we're looking for. Everybody's going to build theirs a little different, because what you have laying around is going to be different from what I have laying around. You could easily build this out of all 2x4s. As far as if you were building it out of straight 2x4s, I would probably double up a lot of it just to get that extra strength, because these pickup beds, guys, they're very heavy. You don't want something that's going to be flimsy, and you certainly don't want your cart to crumble under the bed that you're working on, trying to make a nice pickup, and all of a sudden the whole thing falls on the ground and you got the bottoms of your bedsides are cratered. That's not a good look for anybody. It's not something you're going to want. But as far as what we're going to use today, we're going to just have basically a speed square, a tape measure, pencil for marking stuff. We're going to have a circular saw, driver, some screws. We're going to get some lag bolts to put the casters on, make sure those are good and solid. That's another thing, guys. If you're going to build something like this, make sure you're using good hardware too, because if you put it in such a position that that's what's holding it, then you want to make sure you've got good stuff in there and not have a failure because you were just too cheap at the hardware store to buy the good stuff or long enough screws or anything like that. Make sure you're getting good material. That's going to be step one, is just having a solid build plan. And there's nothing rocket science about this. If you've got some stuff laying around or you got a hardware store, lumberyard close, make a trip. We're going to spend part of an afternoon building this thing, and it's going to save us so much time and energy down the road that it's going to be well worth it. And then, guys, when we're done, if you got room to keep a bed cart, keep it. Leave it all together, whatever. I personally don't have that kind of space, so I'm going to be able to just back all the screws back out of it, put everything back in the pile, and if I need it again, I can reassemble it. It's not a big deal. If I need the lumber for something else down the line, it's still there. I'm not wasting anything. The only thing I've gone out and bought for this project at this point is some casters. About $7 a piece for those. Nothing real expensive. We're going to have, since I'm not buying lumber, even if you're buying lumber, you're probably going to have less than $100 in this project. If you're working in a shop and you've got the space for it and all that stuff, feel free to go buy a good bed cart. They're well worth the investment. Anytime you're working on something like that, it's just nice to be able to take the bed completely off, get it out of the way. If nothing else, painting. It's going to be a lot easier to paint half a pickup at a time than an entire pickup all at once. And you can get around, like we talked earlier, you can get around your bedsides, up at your cap corners, all those corners and things, you can get all the way around it. And if you're doing a color change especially, you're going to have to get in there because you're going to be able to see that different color between the cab and the bed. That's not a good look. I hope you guys are trying to build nice stuff and not cut corners. That's kind of what we're trying to go through here, is how to do things nice without spending $1 million. It's going to be very important to stay budget conscious, because a budget's a fast way to shut down a project. So we want to be able to do things right and on a budget, and that's what we're here for, guys. Again, this is all just stuff I've had laying around. We're not going to have much money wrapped up in this, but it's going to save us a lot of time and energy and hassle down the line. Winter's coming, we'll be able to put everything inside. This will help move that bed around to where we can work, where it's comfortable and where we've got space and all those things. And we're getting into it now, so we're going to start putting this thing together and see what we can make out of it. Okay, here it is. It was really hard for me to try to get any footage while I was putting it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of show it to you overall, and then I'll walk through what we did real quick. Not a complicated thing, guys. It's just, we're basically building a couple walls and tying them together on the ends, putting some casters on the bottom, and that's all it really amounts to. We got swivel casters on the front end. That'll be the front of the bed for what we're doing. Mainly because when you've got the bed on it, you're going to be working more generally at the back. So I always just put the straight casters at the back, so it's not sliding side to side. But you can see, we just grab the front, and we can move it wherever we want to go. It's going to be really easy. We can slide it around, go wherever we want to go with it. Again, a very basic system. I'll walk you through what it is. And, like I said before, guys, it's not anything perfect. It's not anything hard to make. It's fairly crooked in some places because that's what the lumber was doing. But all we're trying to do is hold that bed up off the floor and be able to move it around. We're not building a piano here, guys. I learned that from my grandpa, who's a carpenter, and he says, we're not building a piano. So basically what that means is keep in mind what's important, what you're trying to accomplish. If we were trying to build something perfect, we'd have started with better material, we'd have spent a lot more money. But for what we've got, and we're not doing bad here, guys. It's going to work great for what we're doing. It'll be perfect, and it's not going to take up too much space, and it's going to keep that bed really mobile to where we can move it in and out, move it around side to side, bay to bay, do what we need to with it, and be a lot easier to work around. So I'll grab the camera here and walk around it real quick with you guys and go from there. All right, you can see what we got here. We got our bottom pieces are 4x4s, and so are our vertical pieces. That'll give us a lot of strength. Your weight's going to be sitting down on that bottom 4x4, and having that nice thick. If I was buying new lumber, I'd probably just buy 2x4s and sandwich them together and go that way. But for what we're doing, 4x4s work perfect because that's what we had laying around. Cut a total, we got 2 of them, the same length for the bottoms, run front to back under the bed. Then I cut 6 this size, and those are 18 inches or so, guys. Nothing special. They were just, I had one that was that length and cut the others to match and screwed them down. Basically toe-nailed them in here with wood screws. Those are 4-inch wood screws holding all that together because, again, we need that strength to keep it from rocking side to side, basically across the top. Then across the back, we've got a 2x4 laid across this way to tie the bottom together, and one more across this way to tie the top together. That gives it good strength. You know, it's good. It's not going to wiggle back and forth too much when we're trying to work there. Then across the top, we just laid a 2x4 across flat ways because all that's really going to do, guys, is your floor joists and your bed floor are going to sit across it this way. You're going to have, I don't know, there's 4 or so of those in this short bed. And again, this is only about 6.5 feet front to back because that's our bed length. And even if you've got an 8-foot bed, that'll be just fine because you really don't need one the full length. That's going to hold all the weight that you need right here. If you're strictly working on one project and you don't want to cut them down, you can do that. You know, it's easy enough to buy 8-foot boards and make all this 8-foot. That's totally up to you. Caster wise, again, we got the straight ones on what will be under the back of the pickup bed, and then the swivels on the front. And you can see that they'll just let us roll around wherever we want to go. And I mean, that's really all it is, guys. It's just that simple. And next time we get together, I'll have that bed set up here and we'll get into that. And I'm going to say that that's going to probably do it for this little bit of the project. And you can, again, guys, look how crooked that board is. I mean, we're not using great lumber here, and we still ended up with a good solid product out of this, and pretty happy with the way everything come out. So for now, that ought to do it today. So go find a project and get dirty.